Hey my demigods, what's going on? It's Noah, 13th Olympian, and today for you guys, I'll be having a discussion video on what is the easiest position to play in a conquest game of Smite. So this discussion will be directed mainly towards a lot of the new players of the game, being as you're not going to want to start a new game and play the hardest thing there is to play in that game. So for those of you who are new players, hope you guys all enjoy. Please stick around for this video and let's begin. So basically, just flat out saying, I think the easiest position to play in Smite would have to be the ADC role. Now, there's a little bit of reasoning for this. I've seen a lot of people too say things like all ADCs do is just farm and then, you know, get kills. That would have to be the gist of it, to be completely honest. That's a very, very simplified version of an ADC role. Especially with the meta now, a lot of the ADCs, you'll pretty much be seeing build the same thing throughout every game of ADC that you play. For example, if I was playing an Apollo, I'd probably be starting off something along the lines of Death's Toll, maybe even going into Boots, or Dev's Gauntlet, depends on how you want to build. If you want to go for that early game sustain, Dev's Gauntlet would be great, but if you want to go ahead and, you know, go Death's Toll, then go into Boots, then go into something like Aussie and Executioners and so on and so forth. Pretty easy builds for an ADC. All you have to do is pretty much get a few things down. I mean, you can always have variations in an ADC build. For some gods, like if you're playing as an Artemis, you can go ahead and maybe build a little more crit, or if you're building as Jingwei, crits would be fantastic. But for the most part, for a lot of the ADCs, you'll be building almost the same thing. Now there are some gods, like such as Uller, who is a hunter, that you will be, let's say, building more ability based, for example. So you could be going Transcendence, Aussie, Boots, all that other good stuff. But there's no really big variation in how you would build an ADC. Now, a second hardest position, I would have to say second easiest position, these two come in close, would have to be solo lane, because solo lane honestly only comes in second, like, easiest position to me, is just because you're by yourself. Like, you're not going to be getting a lot of ganks in your lane, and if you do, great and all, but if you happen to be losing your lane, well, you're not going to be getting those ganks. You're really just by yourself in the solo lane. You have to be able to counter build and be able to outplay your opponent, yes, but you're by yourself. There's really no other factors that go into, not too many other players will be like coming in and touching your lane, unless there's like a mid lane gank or a jungler gank, or a combination of the two. Solo lane would have to be a really easy position to play, especially because if you can play one of the really good warriors, for example, like Bellona, she's really easy to play in the solo lane. She's really easy to play in general, but she can get countered a lot. It's just she's super easy to learn. There's a few warriors that are pretty good, pretty easy to learn, which is why solo lane and ADC would have to be, honestly for me, the easiest positions to play in Smite, because especially, like I said, in the solo lane, you're by yourself most of the time. You're not gonna, you know, have to, unless you want to go ahead and rotate. If you're one of the better players in solo lane, you will be rotating here and there, but for the most part, solo lane and ADC are the easiest positions. Now, for the hardest positions of the game, I would honestly have to say the flat out hardest, it would have to be support, with jungle being a really close second. Support, you have to know how to do a lot of things. You have to be able to what am I talking about? You have to be able to know how to counter build. You have to be able to know how to ward. I mean, everyone should know how to ward in the game, but for the most part, warding is a big, like, you rely on the support a lot to be warding. And any engagement, really, you're relying on your support to do so many things in engagement that it's pretty hard even for a noob player, even for me sometimes. It's pretty hard for me to play support at times. Like, you have to know how to rotate, you have to know to buy wards, you have to know to counter build, what actives to buy, and you have to know when to be aggressive, because sometimes there are times when you're support and you have to be aggressive. There are some aggressive supports out there, and it's like, you know, if you don't have that aggression as a support from time to time, I'm not saying you'd be playing aggressive as a support the entire time, but if you don't have like a little bit of aggression, you know, too, it's like, you know, you're not really helping out your ADC too much. And a lot of the times too, especially this goes for jungler as well, a lot of the things get blamed on a support or on a jungler, which sometimes may, how how do I say it? It might like make you not want to play that position as much, because if you just get blamed for a lot of random stuff. Like there are times when, you know, maybe you rotated maybe a little too late, a little too early. You never know, because like if you rotate too late, your teammates are probably dead at that point by the time you get there. So it's like, you know, why'd you even come? But then there are times maybe you rotate too early, and it's like you left your ADC hanging dry, and then he goes ahead and gets killed by their ADC. And so there's a lot of factors that go into playing as a support that a lot of new players wouldn't understand wouldn't understand. Same with jungler. Jungler need to know how to rotate, need to know when to get the buffs. Because for example, if you go ahead and rush damage buff, it's up, for example, and there's a team fight going in mid lane. The mid laner can't go over there and get that damage buff because he's busy fighting, and the time he can go get there, the buff is already gone. So I mean, there's a lot of things that go into building junglers and support, and for junglers too, counter building at times if you want to just go ahead and troll their jungler, or even just knowing how to build in general, because sometimes you might want to build some defense on a jungler. Like Breastplate of Valor would go great on a Fenrir, for example, maybe even on a Wheelish, but then again, you can also build a lot of power. You know, it depends on how not your playstyle too goes into a lot of this as well. But for a new player, I would try to stay away from jungle and support unless you're, of course, trying to train in these positions. Then go ahead, by all means, train. But if you're going to be starting out in the game of Smite, I would have to say ADC and solo would be really good positions for you to start out with. Mid lane, I would have to say, is kind of in between there. You do have to know how to rotate, you do have to know how to build, but I think mid lane would also have to be like a really good sweet spot. Like, you don't want to play anything too easy, you don't want to play anything too hard, but it's like just right there. It's like in the middle. It's in the middle. But yeah, anyways guys, hope you all enjoyed. I hope you guys all learned a little bit out of this little discussion video. For all you new players out there, hope you guys all enjoyed, hope you all learned something, and other than that, I will see you all next time. Peace.